Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto in women's pirate group and got harem. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the KYUUBI16 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Harak, a world composed of nothing but men, and Major, a world composed of nothing but women. Uzumaki Naruto had found himself on the former. For the past few months he had been covertly acquiring information, infiltrating Tarak to gain information. As a traveler he found himself doing this quite often, traveling to other dimensions, sometimes on his own and other times with allies. It was something he had started to do after his life in the elemental nations had come to an end and he had met with old man Hagoromo. Instead of just becoming a fading remnant in the afterlife, Naruto was given the choice to explore other worlds. Between that and simply going the route of reincarnation where his memories and experiences would simply just fade away, the choice was simple. He had never imagined that the choice he made would get him embroiled in an intergalactic war. At that moment he was making his way on a mission to board and capture or sabotage the enemy pirate ship. As he looked on from a distance he could see the firefight between the men's vanguards and the women's dreads. Laser beam after beam was impacting the enemy flagship. He could see that the Major pirates planned on docking in the Talarak's flagship and raiding it. Pressing a few buttons on the panel he placed his machine on standby mode as he teleported inside. As he landed down the ship began to break up as the old segment was blown apart from the rest of the ship. Before he could act, a body crashed into him, sending them both down to the floor below. He was momentarily stunned from the impact as he took a moment to recollect himself. Reaching out, Naruto clutched something soft and squishy in the palm of his hand, eliciting a sound that was without a doubt a woman's dot. To an inhabitant of Talark this girl would have been the enemy and they would have promptly freaked out. With a quick eye he studied her over. The cute girl with dark red hair that trailed down to her legs like a long, lush Kitsune tail. She was definitely a teenager, no older than 15 or 16, with nice pouty and blue eyes. Her outfit consisted of a tight black tank top that ended above her stomach, which was flat and smooth, looking along with a cream-colored long-sleeved jacket, short-length boots and cream skirt that accentuated her legs. Wow. A real live alien. She cried out in an excited manner. Something in her voice and facial expressions was cute, innocent and naive in a sort of way. She looked at him in deep amazement. She had reached out and touched one of her whiskers, causing him to purr. "You okay, miss?" he finally voiced as she blinked at him before finally answering. "I think so. Where are we?" she asked, looking around. It looked like they were in a crystal chamber of sorts. "I have no idea," he said, looking around. "A reactor room of some kind. But I'm going to take a long shot and assume you're a pirate." "Yep," she said cheerfully with a goofy smile. "My name is Dita Liebly. What's yours, Mr. Alien?" "Uzumaki Naruto," he introduced himself. "But just call me Naruto. You know, I was told the men of Tarak were really mean and nasty, but you seem nice." "Well, it's always been in my nature to help people, especially if they're cute like you," he said with a grin as Dita blushed. His demeanor changed when a familiar cold shiver coursed through his body. That man was getting close by. Damn it. I'd thought I had more time to study the pexus. While this was going on, the women pirates had finally secured the ship. "Ooh, no matter how many times I smell it, the disinfectant is always nauseating," spoke the voice of one of the suit-clad personnel. She began removing her suit, revealing her rather model-like beauty. She was a tall woman with long lush golden blonde hair that reached down to her rather lovely posterior. Her face lacked blemishes of any kind, with pouty and ruby red dot. She was an extremely curvy one, particularly top-heavy, making her hands down the bustiest among all her comrades, and the way she dressed highlighted it. The rather revealing dress was a black-style dress with an open front that went down to her navel, showing absolute cleavage held by a metallic ring. It was held by thin leather straps with a type of collar. It also had slits on both sides of the long skirt, along with ankle-length boots and a rapier at her side. Another woman also removed her aqua hair, which had some sort of circlet there with her that was covering the left side of her face. Her features were more along the side of tomboyish, on the short side. She was outfitted with a white and black outfit similar to a flight suit, and while she was rather attractive like her friend, she was shorter by several inches and she was more bottom heavy. These women were respectively the second best and ace pilot of the Dread squadrons. "Has anyone seen the trainee?" "I think I saw her crash near the engine room," answered a new voice. Another Dread pilot whose outfit consisted of a swimsuit-like uniform. It showed upper portions of her yet kept them covered and showed her back. She also wore thigh-length boots, her outfit consisting of dark and light violet colors in a shade similar to her eye color. She also had emerald green hair held by some sort of decorative hairpin and wore a long glove, one half away on her arm and the other one gloveless. The aqua-haired woman scowls. Jura, Barnett with Mep Iway tended to everyone else who was injured in the battle. "Yes ma'am," answered a young girl dressed in a French maid outfit, her hair done in 2 large adangos. Naruto meanwhile was looking over at his damaged vanguard. He let out an incense curse before following with a low sigh, as the combat unit was effectively useless. "Mr. Ali mean Naruto, is there something I can do?" she asked, poking her face near him as she bent over to look over his shoulder, her hands resting on her knees. "No, it's busted." The ship rumbled as something impacted it, causing the two to tumble over. Naruto fell back and Dita on top of them, both their foreheads bumping, causing them to wince. Ow, Dita whined as she massaged her head. "That hurt." "Yeah, no kidding," he responded with an amused smile. "Yo, you might want to contact your captain and tell them to get out of here now. I'm not sure what kind of firepower you girls have, but the person who I think is coming is close and you will all be caught in the crossfire and possibly killed." In another part of the ship, someone else was becoming aware of the situation. "Report. What was the cause of that explosion?" The person who voiced this was an attractive-looking tall woman with dark, bronze-like skin who looked like she was of Arabian descent. Her outfit consisted of an Arabian harem girl theme of a dark green color. The second in command was Buzame. Valessa, otherwise known as BC to her companions. "Commander, scanners are picking up some new kind of mech," answered a young, short, red-haired pirate. Her outfit consisted of a white and green full-body flight suit, similar to Maya's very own. It seems to have no specific target and is firing on everything in sight. Do a scan and try to decipher its abilities. We need to analyze the data and try to find the most effective weapons. Ezra contacts the Dread pilots. The former was a young woman dressed like a civilian with soft brown hair and a kind smile. Not the kind of person you expected among the pirates. The other was another one, a young girl with 2 extremely thick pigtails, an engineer's uniform with thick glasses. Another explosion shook the ship as the man's vessel was blasted by missile launchers. The shields have gone offline and secondary systems have gone offline. What? From the shock waves of a single attack? Impossible. Commander, the mech has turned its attention to us. It's pulled out a beam rifle and is preparing to fire. Energy readings are off the chart. We're not going to be able to dodge in time. One of the analysts cried out. Unknown to all those on the ship, the pexus began to glow as a bright light engulfed everything in sight. As this was going on, Naruto could feel it, a will to survive. The ship had disappeared from the spot as it was just as the beam from the enemy mech fired, piercing through the empty soundless void of space as it connected with a dwarf planet and blowing it to pieces. Damn it. Looks like we missed him, vengeance. But without the virtue unit Uzumaki won't get far. The pilot thought as he retreated to his base of operations. An image of red blood cells appears followed by white blood cells. The ligaments of the human body appear, followed by tissues and other identifiers of the human body. Slowly but surely the image expands before it reveals the image of the human body. The body disappears in a flash of green light as an image of Nirvana flying through space appears. An image of Naruto in virtue appears. He's flying through space when in a flash Vengeance and a Kuryu appear. Their beam sabers clash and both are forced away from each. He fires a charged particle beam to which Naruto narrowly avoids only to be hit by some missiles, sending him crashing into a meteor. So now my time is up. Your game starts, my heart moving. Past time has no meaning for us, it's not enough. Will we make it better or just stand here longer? Say it, we can't end here till we can get it enough. Right before he could be killed, a Kuryu is blown off course. An image of Dita, Maya, and Jura's Dread flies by. The image cracks into 3 triangles showing their faces. A smirk forms on Naruto's face as virtue dislodges itself from the meteor. The 4 of them begin flying at a Kuryu when they are developed by a white light. Zedateki konkyo wa yuso derek. Itsudaderu no wa boku no. Ishinya fua no kakimazeta. Yoayudat sayoi boku. Images of Nirvana are shown. BC and Magna are on the bridge with the former giving orders. Amaran and the other navigators are on their consoles when data appears. It then switched to a view of Bart, who was currently navigating, extending his hand and yelling something as a powerful beam of energy erupts from the Nirvana, wiping out a squadron of enemies. Wero, Parfit and the other members of Nirvana are shown during their usual duties. This is my own judgment. Got nothing to say. Mishimo Hokanai Nanaka Amatsukia Saku Yu Sa. Hanzin Kenkaku Dreamer ga Boku no Me Sa. An image of the blue giant is quickly shown destroying enemies with its twin cannon. An image of vandread Maya appears, slicing through one of the sea urchins with ease. Finally, an image of Gundread Jura shielded Nirvana from enemy attack as it used its discs to fire on the enemy. Itsudaderu no wa boku no. Ishinya fua no kakimazeta. Yoayudat sayoi boku. Dark images of shrouded figures appear. Vengeance fires the charged particle gun and of Harbinger glowing with a menacing red light. Shadowed visions of the Harvester's forces then appear. When I'm caught in fire. When I rise up higher. Do you see me out there? I can't get enough. Can't get enough. The image comes down to Naruto in the ship's bio garden. Suddenly he's gripped on his right arm by Dita. He's hugged from behind by Jura. An amused Maya stood off to his left, a brief flash of their machines appearing behind him as everything went to black. 00000. Story start. 00000. A yawn escaped from Naruto's as he slowly began to stretch. Opening his eyes, he took a moment for his blurred vision to clearly before he began to move. Sitting himself up, he found himself in a small jail cell. Two other males were there as well, one a tall, long raven-haired man with a doctor's coat and a guy with short blonde hair, dressed in the uniform of a Terak official. "Hey, aren't you that doctor guy? McFile something?" Naruto suddenly spoke up, figuring that he might as well pass the time until he could get a handle on the situation. "Waylo McFile," he introduced himself. "And aren't you that pilot Naruto Uzumaki?" "That would be me. And I'm Bart Garces." The other blonde started to introduce himself, but noticed Naruto seemed rather disinterested. "Well, talk about being rude. Where the hell is that hot redhead at, by the way?" Naruto couldn't help but wonder. "Redhead? You mean another one of our own is here?" The Tarakian asked as Naruto's face crunched up in disgust at the insinuation. "No, I was talking about a woman," he answered the guy without thinking. He realized his slip when he saw the man's expression of horror. "A woman? What is wrong with you, man? Don't you know they'll eat your flesh?" Naruto shook his head and groaned. "Never mind, just forget I said anything," the blonde said as he decided to take his map despite deciding not too long ago to talk to pass time. Though, his nap would soon be interrupted. The person who jostled awake was an attractive dark-skinned woman with long flowing silver hair. She had two girls with her wearing uniforms. They were wearing dark black pants and a blue and white uniform jacket that outlined theirs. One was quite curvy, both top and bottom heavy, while the other was slender. "So I take it you need something from us?" Naruto asked, making sure not to appear aggressive or threatening in the slightest. "Before I answer, you'll come with us, won't you?" Despite her phrasing it as a question, the undertone was clear that he didn't have much choice in the matter. Naruto shrugged his shoulders and stopped up. "I have nothing better to do, but do you mind picking that up for me?" he asked, gesturing to the egg-shaped item he had sealed earlier. Soon he, the doctor and blonde found their hands tied and were being led down the hallway of the infected ship. The three of them were soon escorted to a room. "My goodness, I heard you rounded up some prisoners, but they're just kids," the captain, an old woman wearing some kind of coat with the primary color being brown, said as she entered the room. If I'm right, then she's that famous captain of female space pirates. Lime. Strawberry. Something with fruits. Kind of reminds me of that old man as Naruto fondly began reminiscing about the strange egg-like thing suddenly to life. It hovered over to Naruto and yelled, "What was the big idea of short-circuiting me earlier? If I haven't told you once, I told you 100 times, it's annoying when you jabber needlessly when we're in danger." The blonde snapped in annoyance. "Well, if you didn't take those crazy risks I wouldn't yell at you constantly," the machine replied, acting surprisingly human. "How nostalgic. A Navi robot and a working one too," the old woman said in a brief moment of nostalgia. "Captain, we should get rid of them. Things are already unstable enough," suggested the light blue-haired woman from before. "Why hello, what's this?" Naruto thought as he looked the woman over. She had that whole Ice Queen shtick going on, not to mention she exhumed the aura of a lone wolf, but he had to admit she was definitely exotic looking. Athletic and serious. The captain raised her left hand from her cane. "No reason to be hasty, Maya. We'll carefully consider how we want to cook these fellows up," the captain responded to her afterwards. Naruto laughed his ass off at the old woman's sense of humor. "Aba-san, you seem like my kind of person," he said with a grin, surprising his captors. He assumed they assumed he was a Tarakian and was going to freak over the little joke. "So that long-haired boy is a doctor, but what about this one?" She pointed her cane at Naruto. "The pilot," the blue-haired pilot responded. "To be fair, I'm just a pilot who was at the wrong place at the time. Well, technically for what I was trying to do it was the wrong time." "There's something approaching," a bridge bunny announced over the intercom. "Male reinforcements?" the dark-skinned woman asked. "Actually they're UFOs," Dita cried over the channel, cutting off the navigator. "Hey, if you happen to have a vanguard stashed in this ship I can lend my aid," Naruto suggested, figuring it would be better to gain their trust. There was a good chance that vengeance would catch up with them in a matter of days, and without virtue this ship would be a sitting duck. The dread pilot Maya drew her gun from her holster and pointed it between Naruto's eye. "And why should we trust you, man?" Her distaste in his gender was quite evident by her tone and the sharp look in her eyes. He recognized that look, that utter distaste for someone. That look brought back a memory of the first time he sparred with Sasuke. "The way I see it is, if this ship gets blown apart I die. So I might as well. "And how do we know you won't run away?" she questioned as Naruto derisively snorted in response to the accusation. "Well, if I did, it would be the same as me sitting here tied up doing nothing. Hell, I could be shot down halfway through and then you'll never have to worry about me again, or I could prove the deciding factor that turns things around." "Do it," the old woman ordered. "Captain?" she questioned with a mix of hesitation and surprise. "Let's see if this pilot can back up his talk." Maya wasn't happy but relented to her captain's command. Maya freed Naruto from his cuffs and led him to the launching bay. He was led to a rather old model-looking Vanguard in the hangar. He opened it and jumped into the pit. This is going to dot even after all this time Naruto hadn't adapted to Vanguards. No amount of tinkering or improvements would ever measure up to his partner machine. "No use complaining about," he mumbled to himself as it powered up. "Time for me to go kick some ass," he yelled as the Vanguard launched out into the firefight. "The instruments are responding differently," Maya snapped in a huff of annoyance as her controls weren't responding to her input. Screens of Dita and Jura appeared from the viewing screen of Maya's pit. An all-white dread soared through the dark void of space that surrounded her. Her enemy was nothing more than red dots on her screens, and through her hatch, they looked like nothing more than a large cube with 2 legs and 2 arms that did nothing really. The real threat was the short bursts of red lasers that had shot out of its tip on the center of the cube-like structure. "Dita, behind you," Maya barked out, taking down another cube. Dita twisted and twirled through enemy fire, returning with her own, shooting only one of the 5 in front of her down. She didn't have the skills of her fellow pilots, but what she lacked in skill, she made up for in courage and heart. Dita screamed loudly as she was nicked by enemy fire. "Bad aliens. Jura to your left," Maya howled, blasting another 3 of the strange machines. The onslaught of the robotic creatures just never seemed to stop. They came from nowhere and were quickly multiplying with every single one shot down. If one went down, 3 more would take its place. "Dita, watch out," Jura bellowed. Dita had no time to react. The cube was directly in front of her and priming its weapon for a direct hit on her pit. Dita could only close her eyes and wait for death. Next thing she heard was a slicing sound and explosion. She opened her eyes to see the old Vanguard that was stored in Nirvana. "Naruto." "Hey you, Dita, right, you okay?" Naruto asked, interrupting Dita before she could finish. "Yes, I'm okay," she whispered. "Sorry if I was a bit late, the specs on this model are terrible and I can't perform to the level I'm used to. I'll give you girls some cover," he said as he pressed a few buttons and started diverting the power source from his shields to his booster and beam rifle. With pinpoint deadly accuracy he started shooting down 4 or 5 at a time. Suddenly the enemies focused from the Dread pilots were shifted onto him as they started firing at him as one unit. Using judgment and good timing, he used the thrusters to avoid the blast. Back on the ship with the others, they were trying to organize things. "Well, looks like you could use some help." "Truth of the matter is, I'm a helmsman," Bart said, jumping to his feet. "How about we call for a ceasefire and help each other? It would be much smarter to gather our forces and get over this together," he said, approaching the captain. The captain smiled at him. "Interesting, that's not a bad idea." "Glad you see it that way, how about we shake on it," Bart said, holding his hand out only to have the captain smack it away. "I don't wish to get chummy, you'll still be treated as one of our prisoners." "I can't do anything here. Take me to sickbay," Duelo stated as he was led by another one of the female pirates. Due to the fusion, the bridge was extended out to that platform. Magno informed Bart as the scheming blonde stared out at the circular aqua-green platform. He was expecting something more familiar, not some small pool of mysterious liquid. He felt a shove from Magno and staggered forward before regaining his footing. "Show us what you can do, helmsman." At the constant prodding from the older woman's words, Bart cautiously walked towards the small platform and looked down into the depths of the bridge. "What the hell is up with this ship? What's the matter? From the look of your hesitation it seems you don't know how to use it." Bart looked back to her and the bridge hands. "It's not that, it's just this is a secret project of our military," he said quickly, trying to cover his hesitation before he ended up back in the cell. While his attention was away, the liquid jumped up from its calm surface, snaring Bart's leg and dragging him in as he screamed and clawed at the edge of the platform for a second before completely pulling him in. Everyone on the bridge looked surprised at the light that shot up before it calmed to a pristine unmoved surface. "That's some secret weapon," Magno mumbled. "It means he has no idea what he's doing," Pyoro added. Within the pool, Bart floated around, lacking his clothes and looking around wildly at the battle around him. Bart took a step back, which in turn caused the ship to move and knocked everyone to ground. Back outside during the battle. Having long since switched to a beam saber, Naruto had slashed yet another several cube enemies to pieces. Several beams from swarming machines shot out and obliterate the Vanguard's arm. Naruto gritted his teeth as several screens alerted him to the damage of the Vanguard popped up. "Naruto." Maya spotted Dita, who was flying her dread to Naruto to assist him. Dita pulled back. She ordered the younger pilot. "There is nothing to worry about, Maya. Naruto will pull us out of this situation somehow," she said with confidence in the two. As Naruto was about to reach the enemy ship, a mass of cube fighters clung to him, working against his thrusters as he tried to reach out to the ship. "Just a bit more," he groaned, pushing his machine to the limits. The more he forced its limitations, the more the machine began to give out. "Almost there, can't give up." Orange small pillars rushed from the siege ship and towards the vanguard, piercing through it as Dita rushed in when he exploded. Maya turned away, knowing now it was a futile effort. On Nirvana Mango's side. So a miracle didn't occur after all. All hands abandoned. BC started to order, but was stopped as a giant hand broke through the pillars that speared through the vanguard. The giant machine broke the pillars that surrounded it to pieces, its armor blazing hot from the explosion. The machine was blue from head to toe and covered in thick armor plating, and its forearms had green slots at the wrist, the head unit which was white with a giant horn sticking out from where the forehead would be, and on its back were two green crystals sticking out at a point. The towering giant dashed through and bulldozed its way through the cube fighters, forcing its hands inside the jaws of the ship and pried it open. The crystals on its back slid down then over the shoulders and gave a soft hum as it glowed brightly before firing off twin beams, causing the ship to bulge before exploding as the energy shot straight through. "Our ship has been completely consumed by the crystals." BC began her report. "The bridge, residential quarters and engine room have been engulfed as well. Fortunately, the dread platform and registry central are undamaged. We are currently cleaning up and installing the new database. The bridge has stopped sliding and is currently situated over the ship's garden. The growth of the pexus seems to have reached its peak, all other changes have ceased for now." BC finished her report. "You have a report as well, am I correct, Maya?" The dread leader nodded. "Thank you, Commander. The 3 dreads that have been transformed by the pexus are too large for our original platform, so we have modified the men's platform to hold them. I also have discovered that this ship hasn't been used for a long time. All the circuits and cables are decayed and useless," Maya said as BC continued from her. "The real problem is our current location. It's hard to believe, but we're extremely far away from major territory. According to our estimates, it will take approximately 270 days to return home." Mango sighed. "What did we do to deserve to be swept across the galaxy?" Turning to Maya, "And any word about our new enemy?" she asked, looking for a bit of good news. Maya answered, "My team was understaffed, so I sent some volunteers to investigate the site." Out in space, Gascon and Dita headed toward what remained of the destroyed ship and the supply ship. The registry leader sighed as Dita talked. "This is going to be a long day," she said, as all the way there Dita only talked about aliens. On the bridge bunnies were fighting to remain cool as the rising heat spread throughout the ship. A bridge bunny asked, "What's going on with the air conditioning?" Another contacted an engineer team. "It's 82 degrees here," she had in response. One of the engineer team replied, "Stop complaining, it's over 86 in here." In the men's holding cell, Duelo, Bart and Naruto were being sprayed with cold water. Bart scurried around, while Duelo stood his ground and took it, and Naruto seemed to be in his own little world. "So these are the only men left, huh?" the captain asked, watching them all. Her sub-commander answered back with yes, "We'll have to rely on them until we can fully figure out the ship systems." Magno began recalling the memory of Bart being pulled into that strange portal in the bridge in their first battle. "Yes, I've never seen it before. It seemed as if this ship was alive," she said, shuddering. After their wash, the men were back in the brig, where Bart was once again telling one of his made-up stories. "It was so unnerving, my comrades were dying left and right until it became clear that I had to take control of the situation, but now fate has provided me with 3 allies." Duelo goes with it, while Naruto's mind drifts off to other things. "I need to get my hands on Virtue. If Vengeance and Akuryu catch up to us, he won't hesitate to obliterate this entire crew." Even after Bart was led away by the sub-commander, Naruto had remained silent. Back with the women who were continuing with the monitoring. "As you can see, the ship looks more like a giant factory than a spaceship," Gascon explained as a camera in her suit began showing what she saw with a smaller screen showing her face. "Wow, Ms. Gasco, look at that." The camera showed Dita taking pictures of the destroyed ship while taking in the sights of the remains of its interior. "Have you found anything substantial yet?" Magno asked. "We're looking through the database right now, but it's pretty hefty, Captain." Suddenly Dita popped up from below Gascoigne's sight and in front of her, surprising the reg leader. "Hey Ms. Gasco, can I look around?" Gascon scowled and fed the girl's forehead part of her helmet. "Absolutely not. We still have work to do." Dita was pushed back from the light tap. "Help. I can't stop." Magno chuckled at the sight until she got a communication from Busum. "Yes, BC?" The tanned girl's voice sounded through the device. I brought our helmsman. Magno nodded. Alright, Gascon, I leave this operation to you. With a nod from the Reg division leader they ended the meeting, and Magno's chair moved back as a door opened. The seat rotated around as it descended before arriving at her station. Bart stared at Magno nervously, wondering what need she had of him. You wanted to see me, Captain? She nodded. Yes. She pointed towards the platform where the S control was. I want to know how you made it work, for some reason it refuses to work for us. He gritted his teeth nervously as he thought of an answer. He thought up a plan and smiled. Well, of course I should, given the situation. He raised his arms, flexing the cuffs which BC removed for him. Rubbing his wrists lightly, he began to walk to the platform. Now, given that this is a man's ship. He turned to face them while walking backwards. It means only a man can operate it, which is very fortunate for you that I'm here. He said, making sure to ensure that he is disposable to the pirate crew's survival. While he was in the middle of his explanation, he never noticed the pool within the platform reach out and grab his leg. In fact, you could say I was indispensable, Gah. But the bright flash, he was pulled into the mysterious liquid. Magno sighed, narrowing her eyes at the platform. I will never understand the system. What do you see, Dita? Gascon asked the young woman as she looked through a handheld telescope. I don't see the ship, only markers. Gascon frowned and thought. Well, something must have happened. Work is done nonetheless, let's go. When the two began to move towards Dita's dread, Gascon spotted something out of the corner of her eye, but was too late to react in time. The Magirian crew was currently trying to rein in control of the ship with little success as it made its way towards large clouds of gases. Scanners are picking up a nebula ahead of us. Amran Slaintiev said from her terminal, while Belvedere Coco voiced her worry about the crew being unable to retake control of the ship. The problems just keep on stacking up, Magno commented to herself, a pack of ice on her head when she found her little fan not doing the job. She looked up as a screen popped up. The dread platforms are offline, we're unable to retrieve Dita and Ms. Gasco. Maya informed while another screen with Barnett and Jura behind her popped up. Jura and I have been trapped in the elevator for hours. Bart yelped as he zoomed in on the blizzard storm that was the nebula. Ah, stop. How do I turn around? With yell, the ship plunged into the cloud of ice. Waylo was currently checking up on Ezra, the unconscious bridge hand was panting less and her face less flushed than when she arrived. The doctor began using a smaller and more advanced instrument reminiscent of a sonograph, running it over the woman's stomach. There was a flash of blue before it suddenly switched to red. Looking up at the small green at the bedside, he studied the projection which displayed the woman's organ, but before he could finish the power cut off. Without even batting an eye, his hand lashed out and snatched the communicator from the female to his right, ignoring her glare as he activated the device. Engineering, there's a patient I'm working on and needs power to the sickbay. He heard a growl of frustration over the small device. I would be glad to, but I'm having a problem here since I can't read men's language. Waylo looked at BC out of the corner of his eyes. I could help you if I was there. Go right ahead. Responded with a smug smile. Dwaylo nodded and stood up. He walked down a series of hallways before stepping onto an elevator where it took him to the reactor room. He ignored the cry of alarm from one of the engineers as Parfit turned and called him over. I've been trying to study the status of the pexus, but there's nothing we can do if we can't read the data. Dwaylo looked over the small Navi bot as streams of code ran across its screen-like face. What are you trying to do exactly? Parfit looked at him, her face showing deep thought. I don't know how and I don't have an explanation as to why, but the parks and this guy's wavelength are linked. So I thought he could be used as a sensor, but I can understand the display. I see. He walked over and began to type into Pyoro's display. It appears some impurities are spreading within the main engine room, probably due to the sudden changes. Parfit thought over his words with worry. From what we learned, the system was designed to tap into the crystal and collect energy from its growth, but she said, going quiet in thought over the reaction of the sentient crystal when Dwaylo looked at the pigtailed engineer. It's possible that it's reacting from the fusion of the two. As Parfit nodded in agreement. Do you think you can correct it? I'm sorry, but I'm a doctor, not an engineer. I know nothing of how a ship works or what it takes to repair it. His specialty was in the biological nature of the human body, well, in actuality a man's body. Perfect pouted in slight anger at the Tarakian doctor. What excuse is that? Anything that moves is alive, that's what I believe. And isn't it a doctor's duty to help all living things, right? Dwaylo looked at her, surprised by her words before lazily smiling. You have a very interesting perspective. The ship soon came to a stop as a result of the engines finally dying down, and with that the ship came to a stop within the frozen storm of ice, known as a nebula. While back within the reactor room, they were studying the data of the ship from Pyro's display when the machine wobbled before detaching the cables it was attached to, and steam rising from between its arm. Was then that they discovered the ship was eliminating all of its impurities, like a living life form when it had an illness, and its body reacting to fight it off. Magno was currently trying to get her fan working again, since it shut down with the ship suddenly stopping in the nebula, when she looked up as BC's face appeared on a screen. "Captain, I have a suggestion." When she saw the aged pirate nod, she carried on. "Our investigation discovered that the male vanguard in the PT unit should be able to launch. With your permission, I would like to send the man out with Folka as supervision to search for Dita and Gascon." Magno looked on and thought. "That's not a bad idea. By the way, what are you doing in the men's section of the ship?" Magno asked, curious as to why Busum would be in that section of the ship with little reason to be there. "I'm just fulfilling my duty as your first mate, Captain." She closed the screen and began to walk over to the cell holding only 2 men left. Dita was trying to cut Gascon free from her prison of strange pillars using the laser, but to no avail. Gascon told her to return to the ship since their task was complete, but Dita refused to leave her behind till the Reg Central leader told her she would also be getting help. With a nod, the young Dread pilot went to her fighter when several cube fighters that survived the combined onslaught from the last battle to chase after her, while one remained behind. Naruto had long since been shaken from his thoughts by the ship's earlier violent shaking and began to wonder when it would be his turn to assist. Finally, the dark-skinned space pirate BC appeared before them again, this time disappearing with Duelo. Naruto began contemplating his next move when the woman returned. "Is it finally my turn?" Naruto spoke up. "On the contrary, I came here to ask you for a favor." "Favor?" "I'm going to be honest with you. We left 2 crew members behind. I would like for you to help get them back. I nearly pushed the Vanguard I had to its limits last time I used it. If you want me to help you, then I need a better machine. I need my actual machine. And as I've already explained, there is a psychopath out there with a mobile machine that can wipe out colonies. It's not me who decides the course of this ship. You'll have to take it up with the captain, so do we have a deal or not?" "I guess I don't have much of a choice." While the engineers were working to repair the ship, Amryn looked to see something large move across the monitor towards the ship. "Captain, a large asteroid-shaped ball of ice is on a collision course with the ship." Magno sighed. "And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse." "Hey, did you hear that? Do something." They all had looks of worry on their faces when Bart screamed for help. Gascon was observing the few cubes reactivating and giving chase to Dita while she remained trapped within her pillar-like prison. "These things regenerate even under these conditions?" she questioned in slight astonishment. She snapped out of her thoughts by movement and turned her body as much as she could to see one of the cube fighters moving towards her. "Well, guess I know what you want for dinner." She joked lightly as she stared at the machine in fear. Dita was avoiding the shots from the cubes, chasing her as best as she could, but was having little success. "I hate it when aliens don't know when to stop." She cried but stopped when she looked down at her radar to see an unknown unit moving towards her. "They're attacking from the front too." She was knocked forward from a blast, causing her to fire her weapons by accident at whatever was coming at her. Naruto really hated the clunky and slow movements of the Vanguard. At this rate he was more than likely to crash, then be killed by the enemy. And of course, narrowly avoiding twin energy beams was not helping the situation. "What the hell? That's a fine way to treat the guy who came all the way out here to save you." Naruto voiced his apparent annoyance with an audible growl. Though Dita paid no attention to his evident anger as her eyes brightened and picked up speed towards him. Mr. "Naruto, you came all this way to save me, thank you." Hey, Dita slowed down before Naruto's words were cut off as the Dread made contact with the Vanguard and they merged. Harfit, Duelo and everyone in the reactor room were trying to secure as many routes for the pexus to get energy to travel through. "We've managed to secure 36 bypasses, how's everything on your end?" Harfit asked, looking at the doctor as he used a soldering iron to melt some wires together in Pyoro's system. "I've done all I can here, we have to make do with what we have." Harfit shook her head as she continued to type in a console furiously. "No, we'll throw off the balance if there aren't enough detours." Duelo looked back at the engineer leader. "Do you know what doctors do in this kind of situation?" She looked up as he smiled. "We believe in our patient's will to live." She nodded her head. Up in the bridge, the crew members watched in worry as the mass of ice continued to head towards them. "The pexus is unresponsive, we have no control." Belvedere shouted as she continued to observe her console of the S status. "Distance is 12,000 and closing." Magno grunted as things looked bleak until her fan came to life and blew air furiously while Belvedere's console showed the pexus power was online. "The system's back online." In the reactor room, Pyoro rebooted and stood at attention as wires flew from his exterior form. "I'm back online and ready for duty." Parfit smiled and put her hand in the doctor standing next to her. Are we good or what? Team fed but continued to stare at her. Magno stood from her chair. Go hard to starboard 30 degrees. She ordered, but Bart was to take up in his cowardice terror. Please Lord no. He squealed and put his arms up in fear but moved his arms down when the ball of ice exploded and saw the Vanguard and Dread combined machine floating, its shoulder-mounted blasters retracting back to their position. Once again he saves the day. The blonde said in envy as he looked at the blue giant in disinterest. Naruto sighed, this damn machine, I should have never installed the outbreak system. He mumbled as a screen popped up showing Gascon looking at the two. You okay kid? You look like you just got mobbed by an army of cube. No, I'm fine, just not used to whatever this is. See Ms. Gasco, I told you it was amazing. She said, flashing a big smile as she began to bounce a bit in the seat, unknowingly grinding on the boy. Did oil you stop that? Naruto cried out as certain sensations were awakening. Aw, what's that poking me? The redhead cried out, which only served to double the blonde's embarrassment. Well, if you suddenly someone came up on the Vandread's radar. What the hell? Those speeds, this is nothing a Vanguard or Dread is capable of, let alone of the enemy we've seen so far. Shit, that could only mean. Naruto's eyes widened as that familiar chill came over him. He opened up a feed to the ship. Captain, you have to get the ship moving. Get everyone out of here now. Naruto ignored the shouts of the crew members voicing their distaste at a man ordering their captain around, but he ignored it. The man I told you about. He's nearly here. Zoid's chaotic century death Sora awakens theme. Not too far away, a black and white machine approached their destination at near Mach 1 speed. The machine was a mixture of both heaven and hell in its scheme. Its face was pale and angelic in its facial features with thin arms. Its torso was adorned with black armor, and from its back extended 3 demonic wings from its left side and 3 angelic wings from its right side, which were cradling with several assault machine cannons and rifles. It also contained light assault guns installed in its head, along with 6 beam sabers installed along its. At the bottom half of its torso seemed to be a massive containment unit several times the size of the machine that didn't appear to hinder the machine at all. Slowing down, the machine came to a stop as the massive containment unit was disengaged from the machine with steam erupting from the container. Out of the container were several smaller containers with weapons and parts. An ominous white light glowed from the machine as its wings extended and the machine pulled a beam rifle. It then combined it from the other beam rifles that were disengaged from its wings, which were homing in on the target. The wings began to glow as the machine quickly assembled the beam rifles into a large beam rifle. The tip of the barrel began to glow a bluish-white as the weapon prepared to fire. Meanwhile, back on Nirvana, the crew was preparing for impact. Captain, the energy readings from that unidentified machine are off the charts. If we take a direct hit from that thing, Nirvana will be destroyed. Amron said. Reroute all spare power to the shields and brace for impact. Manga ordered. The Vengeance fired its beam as it narrowly clipped Vandread as it impacted against Nirvana. The beam collided and ripped through the barriers and shredded the topside portion of the Nirvana, causing superficial damage. Damage report. The shields are gone. One of the bridge bunnies stated. Nirvana has taken some heavy damage. Another hit like that and we're done for. Back outside of Nirvana, the Vengeance had set his sight on the Vandread. The machine shifted into its alternate battle mode as it drew out 2 beam sabers from its side. Oh no, Nirvana is in trouble. Dita cried out as she craned her head to look at it, her fear for her friends and crewmates, making her make the foolish mistake of taking her eyes off the enemy. Dita. Focus. Naruto shouted as Vengeance popped up in front of them. Jerking the controls back, they were just able to avoid the first downward slash of beam saber, only for the Vengeance's superior speed to catch them off guard and slash off the Vandread's right arm. Dita let out a scream as Naruto snarled and attempted to use the Vandread's powerful long-range energy cannon after getting some distance, but it was interrupted as the Vengeance threw his 2 sabers, one impaling the Vandread's right leg and the other one of its cannons. In the women's restroom, Belvedere and another woman with deep forest green hair were discussing rumors about men. Dita, being present at the time, eavesdropped on the discussion. Hey, did you hear? I heard men have some sort of funky tube between their legs. No way. The other woman exclaimed. Are you sure it's not an antenna? She went thoughtful for a minute. I wonder if it makes it hard to walk. Gross. It must feel weird. They continued to chatter. Meanwhile, in the designated men's part of the ship, which was ridiculously small, Naruto was exiting the shower after a nice hot shower. He exited the bathing stall only to come face to face with Dita. He paused, blinked, wondering if he was hallucinating for a moment as Dita stared up at him, her eyes full of curiosity as she smiled. What are you doing, Dita-chan? I want to see your antennae. Mr. AI means Naruto. Why what? Naruto exclaimed, his face heating up. He sighed, was he never going to get used to stuff like this? I heard a rumor of men having something between their legs and was curious, so I thought you would show me if it was true. That's rather personal, he said, trying not to dive into any perverted fantasies. Maybe later, once you understand a bit more about the nature of men and women. He explained as she gave him a quizzical look. Now if you mind, he pushed her out of the room. I'm trying to get dressed. A very naive and cute girl wants to see me and I turn her down. He grumbled. Arfid and Pyora were going about the ship, collecting possible names for the ship and offering up a prize of 1 year of food certificates of some restaurant back on Major. We'll get 1 year's worth of food certificates at the Trapeza. For the most part Naruto was ignoring what was being said until he caught the tail end of the statement over the megaphone. That requires immediate investigation. He thought as he finished putting on his pants. Jura and Barnett passing by heard this. A year's worth. The buxom blonde curiously asked. What's this? Nirvana. Barnett read one of the suggestions. Isn't that corny? She asked as Parfit leaned in and answered. The vice captain came up with that name. How do we name the ship? Barnett pressed on, becoming curious. You just enter it into Pyoro. But that explained Jura entered the name Luxury Night for the ship. While in the med bay, Dwaylo was examining Ezra, finding it interesting to study the difference between a man and a woman while finding out about the difference in culture. He found that their difference in creating life was different but nonetheless interesting. Curious if the process of planting the egg of an Oma and splicing the seeds of a could be done on him as well, Ezra explained that anyone could be a dot. EC was in the men's side of the ship, placing data within a pod that was in a launcher too with a second pod next to it. She was getting the pods ready for launch when a screen showing Magno popped up. Is everything ready, Busum? Yes, Captain, all the data we have compiled about the aliens and harvest operation is here and ready to be sent out. Magno then commented about something she was quick to notice while the silver-haired woman was on the bridge. How come you are sending out 2 pods, BC? Busum turned to the other pod and replied. The other one is for the men of Tarak. They might not listen to us because we're women, but we have to tell them either way, since they are also going to be attacked as well by the aliens like our people are. True, they do deserve to know. Alright, the sooner we get the message out, then the better for everyone here on the ship. Roger. Busum pressed the switch, and both pods were taken into the launch tubes and were soon sent out from the Nirvana and on their way to their destinations as their engines kicked in. However, to the shock of Busum and Magno, it was not long before the aliens appeared on the scene. The pods were quickly destroyed, and that was enough to sound the general alarm all over the ship as the Nirvana as 4 alien fighters were now on the scene and attacking the Nirvana. Meanwhile down in the hangar Naruto was working on preparing the Vanguard. Damn machine, he grumbled, finally fixing the hydraulics. The left arm was only at 70% proficiency, not to mention any hopes of creating a shield system were impossible. The sound of the alarm broke him out of his thoughts. The dread pilots began rushing into the hangar to board their ship. I can't let these pilots go off and fight on their own. There is no telling what the enemy will be capable of. Looking back to the machine and its current shape. But if I take too much damage the Vanguard will become virtually unusable. Deciding to take his chances Naruto joined the others out there. For the most part everything was okay. He hacked the nearest cube fighters in half with no problem while dodging fire from several others. He opened the sheath behind him and pulled out 3 small dagger-like swords and tossed them at one of the cube fighters, each one piercing it, and watched as it exploded. He turned and saw one charging at him from behind and dashed to the side, pulling a sharp turn and cleaving the assaulting machine and continuing past it. The other 2 surrounded and circled the Vanguard. Naruto pulled out a second sword as the 2 charged and turned horizontal, while using his vernier thrusters on his right and left shoulders to activate in opposite directions, causing him to spin and slash the 2 and dashed away before they exploded. Keep cool. Do not make any unnecessary movements. He couldn't help but feel something was going on. This force was far too small to be any sort of threat. I'm going on ahead to scout the area. He said as Maya's image appeared on the monitor. Negative, you haven't been given any order to do such a thing. Naruto snorted, sorry, last I recall I wasn't one of your pilots. Besides, it won't take me that long. He said as he cut the feed. Satisfied that he couldn't find any signs of vengeance or the enemy Naruto returned to the ship. It didn't take a genius to figure that once he stepped off the ship he was going to be faced with an angry Maya. So what death-to-men speech am I going to hear now? A scowl appeared on her face. You really are a conceited asshole, aren't you? And what the hell are you going on about? You continued on out there without authorization. Naruto looked at Maya and wondered just why his presence seemed to piss her off so much. Didn't know I have to sign a piece of paper to scout and blow shit up. He cheekily remarked. Stop treating this as a game. Let's get one thing straight, Uzumaki. We don't need your help. We've gotten by without the assistance of men and we will continue to do so. Naruto's face darkened, turning sour. He paid little attention to the fact that Dita had shown up and looked torn at the situation. Naruto, my please don't fight. We're on the same side, remember? She pleaded. And you call me hatred. Are you so blind that you'll throw away any assistance based on something as stupid as gender bias? He sneered. He had a gift at pushing people's buttons. You may not like me, that's fine, but if we're going to be on the same side, then I'll be damned if I'll deal with disrespect. So I'll offer you a deal one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat without any tricks or weapons. If you win, I'll do anything, and I mean anything you say. If I win, you stop riding my ass. Deal? Maya agreed, eager to put the blonde in his place. Word was soon spreading all around the ship, and nearly everyone on the ship had tuned in through one of the video feeds or in person to see this fight. Chattering filled the benches as the crew was eager to see Maya put the man in his place, so to speak. That man is such a fool, challenging Maya to hand-to-hand combat. Maybe once he's put in his place he won't strut around like a fool. Barnett stated as Jura looked contemplative about the whole situation. I don't know, Barnett, is it really going to be that cut and dry? Jura asked as she watched the blonde who stood there motionless, tuning out the sound of the jeers. You can't really believe he stands a chance? Barnett asked her partner in disbelief. He's confident, not in any sort of matter but comfortable in his own skin. I'm just saying we shouldn't be so sure. She answered as the fight finally began. Maya went first, moving on the offensive and struck at the blonde with a powerful jab aimed at his temple. Naruto dropped back, catching himself as he twisted around and gilded backwards. As expected, since the people in this particular area are pilots, you're not too skilled in many refined hand-to-hand arts. She didn't say anything, following up with several sharp strikes that almost reached his face but narrowly missed. Oh Maya. Kick that man's ass. Show him why you don't mess with women. Go Uzumaki. Show them how men do it. Bart cheered as he and Duo made up a very small cheering section on the side from a rickety makeshift bench. The only exception was Dita, who was between the two sections and looked distressed, unsure who to cheer for. Stop running. She grunted as she paused and swung her leg into his side. He merely flinched and laughed it off. But not good enough. He said as he disappeared from her sight. I knew a man's word couldn't be trusted. We promised no tricks. She called out to him only to hear Naruto's voice behind her. No tricks, he impishly began, his hand reaching out and cupping her rather pert backside. Just pure speed and very nice, baby, got back. Following Naruto's comment, the roar that escaped Maya's was so furious even Naruto found himself stunned for a moment. Sorry. 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 He cried out as punch after punch, kick after kick laid into his body. Now he could have easily avoided her blows, but he knew he deserved those hits for groping her. After her anger finally subsided, a long 20 minutes later Naruto finally decided to end the fight. It happened so fast that everyone was left stunned. It went from Maya beating Naruto mercilessly to the Maya on her back, with Naruto's knee nestled into the back of her neck, effectively pinning her. Maya had a lot of work ahead of her, along with potential, but she had issues to work through. That much Naruto was certain. I never just give respect to anyone. Black or white, male or female, human or otherwise, if you want my respect, you have to earn it. I don't hate you, as far as I'm concerned both men and women have their strengths or weaknesses, but it doesn't mean we aren't equals. I don't want to be your enemy, I would like for us to be allies and friends someday. I hope you can come to accept that. Naruto was hoping that the spar and talk no combination was enough to get through Maya's skull, though he was going to be prepared for her to lash out at him if the talk no failed. Assigning him to the reg unit was without a doubt something that was supposed to teach him a lesson. What they did not count on was Naruto's awesome henge ability. All in all, it was an interesting experience, and as he started to work his befriend just about anyone with magic, he learned something new about the all-women pirates. So that's Major? Naruto asked in interest as a holographic image to life. Looks kind of gaudy. As the images continued to play, Gascon began explaining. Indeed, gaudy, beautiful, and clean, but I hated the fact that it was all so superficial. Niger is a country where everyone is friendly and has a good time. But that's just on the outside. Women have a sense of showing off, and they want their gardens to look better than their neighbors. They kept using excessive energy because of that, and as a result, one of the units had to be shut down. Naruto nodded as he saw an image of a housing complex become dark. Gascon continued explaining. Our captain, with no place to go, created this pirate fleet for us. There are no men or women for pirates. Your lives were spared. If this was the real Major army, you would have been dead before you could bark a single word. Naruto remained silent, this sort of speech he heard all too often. This sort of thing, I've seen before. The wastefulness of human beings. I think I understand the motivation of you women from Major a bit more, but I have my own reasons behind my decisions and actions. It has nothing to do with me being a man, nor is it too slight against any of you for being women. I have to do what it takes to protect all those precious to me no matter their gender. Though, much time hadn't passed when the enemy started attacking again. This time they were packing a new type of mysterious ship. The nimble pirate darted about, blowing a few of the cube types to pieces while trying to engage the main machine. However, the strange craft was impossibly fast for its size and evaded the first wave. Then the globes on its surface began to rotate and extended large purple tendrils, making its appearance seem like a sea urchin. Jura commented as she put her dread in a strafing run against it. Wait, are we going to fight that thing? Calm down, Jura team leaders, check your formations. Maya ordered. All teams commenced their attack. No good, Maya. Those needles get in the way. Jura replied as she did, and Barnett's missiles were easily deflected and exploded harmlessly away from the main body. Leader, let's get Naruto out here. Dita called in through her communicator. No. He's a man. An enemy. Have you forgotten? Maya stubbornly replied. But he's a good alien. Dita argued. I told you not to rely on the strength of others. We'll do this on our own. Maya's pride refused to allow her to rely on help from Naruto and fired more missiles that harmlessly exploded near the enemy, once more being deflected by its defensive countermeasures. Back on the ship. They're fighting a losing battle. Damn that stubborn woman. Naruto growled as he punched his fist into the wall. 50 Type B homing missiles. 15 close range. 750 slime bullets. One by one the suppliers listed off the deli orders. They keep trying the same thing over and over again. They're not going to beat that thing at this rate. Naruto noted. Then again with the shit condition the vanguard is we're so close. So close to where my partner is. Damn it. If I fight now the vanguard is toast. It's already taken too much damage, it's nearly completely worn out, but Nirvana is as good as dead if that thing isn't destroyed. Making his choice, Naruto ran from the registry to his next destination. The enemy has adapted to our battle tactics. BC remarked with a frown. The bridge had been watching the battle and trying to come up with a means to counterattack. At this rate we won't last much longer. The spike cube was nimble, using its spines to disable the dreads, keeping them busy long enough to let a few cubes slip by the dread defensive and attack the Nirvana. Magno nodded. It appears the last few battles were nothing more than ploys to assess our strengths and weaknesses. At this rate she trailed off ominously. Naruto came to a stop in front of his vanguard. You really are stubborn. A voice spoke from behind him. Bascone-san, you're not going to try and stop me, aren't you? He asked as she snorted. No, as interesting as it was to have you around in the reg. I think we both know out there on the field is a more fitting way for you to earn your keep. You are ready to see the real work of a stagehand. The Driki Gaskin supply ship detached from the main vessel and flew toward the battle zone. It resembled a large ladybug and was heavily armored and had several grappling arms located on its undersides. As 4 dreads flew toward it, the arms extended themselves and grabbed hold of them, bringing them closer so that new armaments could be loaded onto the fighters. On the main bridge of the Driki, Gascon sat with Naruto and watched the procedures. Okay, I'm gonna do this in 50 seconds. Naruto nodded as he worked at his console and systematically loaded each dread with new missiles and weapons. LE complete. Get out there, girls. Gascon said as they launched. I hope you have some sort of plan. We'll see how it goes, Naruto answered with a smirk. Boarding the vanguard he jumped out into the frame. One last time vanguard. That's all I'm asking is one last time. This time we give it our all. Full power. Meanwhile on the battlefield the dreads were just barely hanging on. I can't lose, not Harry won't depend on a man. I can't lose in a place like this. Maya thought as the enemy ship's spines impacted her weapon again and sent her flying. The left wing chipped off and her ship was heavily damaged. The enemy weapon was closing in on her. Leader. Maya, watch out. His name is Captain Ost. From Superior Gundam Force. What is that? Jura gasped as she saw something new enter the fray. It looks like a vanguard. Dita remarked. In her own dread, Maya gritted her teeth. No. It can't be him. The vanguard shot past as its blade met with the spikes and stopped it from shredding Maya's dread to pieces. Danger. Danger. Blared to life on Naruto's screen. Spikes were launched out from the enemy ship and pierced Naruto's limbs, sending him flying back. I'm not done yet. Naruto stubbornly argued, doing a diagnostic on his machine. 47%. More than enough. He said as he activated his boosters just Dita's fighter flashed onto the scene. Naruto. Let's combine. The gigantic sea urchin had other ideas though as it launched another barrage. Maya's dread flew in to intercept. Dita, watch out. Maya's dread took the hits and was sent speeding out of control. Hang on, Naruto called out as he sped out to catch her only to be nailed by more of the creature's weapons, causing him to lose control of his machine. No. I can't. I won't. Both individuals' thoughts became one just as their machines were about to impact, overcome by the same desire. I won't lose to the likes of you. It was then that they both came together and became a new force. Maya's dread immediately swallowed up the vanguard and began shifting its form. The entire craft flipped itself over and extended twin appendages that resembled the talons of a predatory bird. The front part of the fuselage extended itself even further, forming a serpentine head with tusks. The new mecha hovered in space, ready for combat. Dita was shocked. No way. Barnett exclaimed. So cool. Jura declared as she saw that Maya's fighter was now some kind of dragon-type mecha. On the pirate vessel, the bridge crew was also in awe. He sure has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, Bart said. Inside the pit of the new fighter. What the hell are you doing here? I don't need your help. Maya glared at Naruto as she found herself in a much undignified position. The pit of the new vandread had her sitting in a kind of a reclining position, with him practically on top of her, to which she was trying to rectify by pushing him away. Damn it, woman, will you settle down for one moment? Have you forgotten at that moment that the Gundread shuddered as it was hit by the enemy craft? Not what I had in mind, but no use letting this opportunity go to waste. He remarked as he turned around and grabbed at a set of controls in front of him. The vandread came alive with his touch as he glared over his shoulders to his unexpected co-pilot. We don't have time for your bias against me. Either we work together or die. Your choice. Maya gritted her teeth, but nodded in agreement as she began operating the foot pedals and the controls on either side of her chair. The vandread started darting about after the enemy with an acceleration that was nearly impossible to follow with scanners. What's with that acceleration? Barnett declared. I envy my Aleki. Jura said as she watched the machine wistfully. The new vandread combination moved at speeds the enemy couldn't follow. Even the new enemy's spines were only able to pierce the after images the machine left. However, the machine totally missed its target as it flashed out of sight and reappeared behind it. Inside the pit of the vandread, both Naruto and Maya voiced their anticipation. There, the brief moment when the enemy is vulnerable, Naruto said. Just what I was waiting for. Maya declared. The entire craft became surrounded with power as it flashed forward like a comet. The enemy craft was pierced through its center as the vandread rammed clear through it. A moment later, it exploded into fragments and smaller spheres were scattered all over. The battle was over. Inside the now dormant vandread, Maya was completely exhausted while Naruto was slightly winded. Whew. That was a total mess. Naruto said as he leaned against the console. To think that we'd be thinking the same thing. Maya commented. It's not my intention to be your enemy. Naruto began. I'm not from Tarak. I don't have their beliefs. I am not an enemy of women. Neither Vanguard nor Dread alone can beat an enemy like this. Can you see now why we're better off as allies instead of enemies? Maya didn't answer, since Naruto did raise a good point. This is terrible. Dita pouted as she and the rest of the Dread teams headed back to their ship. Naruto was supposed to combine with me. In her own fighter, Jura began to consider a few things. I see. That means that I might be able to become elegant and awesome, too. I look forward to it. Despite the tensions easing, Naruto found himself enjoying working at Reg Central during his off time. And not for the reason that for the first time in a long time he found someone that his devil's luck in gambling could not win. Royal Flush. This is it. Naruto spoke as the image of the colony where he stashed Virtue came into sight. A rush of anticipation washed over him as images of the rundown colony came into sight. Maya, Barnett, Jura and the bridge bunnies, along with Magno, as usual, were all on the bridge, watching as the colony came into view. Though some of them wouldn't admit it, they had all gathered because Naruto was there. Others were eager to learn more about this powerful machine Naruto had stashed away. There should be plenty of supplies left over. I made an emergency stash for situations such as this one. We'll need a team. I'll highlight the hangars on the maps which you should go and routes you should take. I made sure to heavily trap many routes if for whatever reason I was forced to reveal this location against my will or someone stumbled upon it. Maya, I want you to lead one of the teams with Naruto. Since he knows this place better than anyone, we will listen to his advice to avoid any unneeded casualties, so that means you'll be listening to any and all orders. Understand? Maya nodded, not daring to defy her captain's orders up front. Barnett, you'll be in charge of the second team. Don't worry, time won't be wasted with the usual protocols. I've already rigged the place with explosives set to detonate under a time limit after I removed Virtue. More than enough time will pass between getting the supplies and us leaving without fear of being caught in the explosion. The teams had gathered in the hangar and they were given their orders. The main team consisting of Naruto, Maya, Jura and Dita would be heading where Virtue and most of the secondary supplies would be. Things like documents, stored food or other such things that weren't top priority, while the second team would be hitting up the armory and medical bay. At least the lights still work. Naruto said in relief as he switched a switch. "Hey Naruto, how come you're all alone? Aren't there others like you?" Dita asked as Naruto chuckled. "There are," he began, "but they're off doing their own things. If we're lucky we might run into them." "So, where's this armory we're heading to pilot Uzumaki?" Maya asked, waking up beside Naruto. Naruto looked down at her, as if he was awestruck by something. "What? Sorry, I'm not used to referring to me as anything but man and the enemy of women yet," he remarked quite playfully as a glare formed on her face. Naruto shivered from the coldness. "Not too far from here," he answered, pointing ahead. He supposed it was smart not to piss her off, lest hostilities be renewed. The group continued through more sliding doors until they came to a large corridor. They came to a keypad. He typed in the password, and the doors opened and came across another similar door and set up, and they came across another room. It was a rather large and empty room stained with blood and large grooves and scratch marks. "What in Major?" Maya whispered. "This place gives me the creeps," Jura added. "What happened?" "An attack," Naruto answered. "Not really something we should spend too much time reflecting on," Naruto added before they could ask what happened to the bodies. They came to an intersection to which Naruto pointed left. "Down there are the supplies, you three go ahead and begin recovering them," he said, directing his team. "The rest of you head right and right again and that's the room you'll need to head to." "What about you Naruto?" Dita asked. "I'm going to recover my partner. I'll be here," Naruto remarked as he began to put in his passwords. "Give it a few minutes," he said, putting in password after password as he undid the security measures. "If you all finish before I do, go ahead and return with the shuttles. I'll be returning by flying in Virtue," he said as he sat down the box of parts from his left hand. He had brought a few of the Vanguard parts in case he needed them. "The 2 shuttles have returned to Nirvana," Celtic Midori informed everyone. "It appears that everyone but the Naruto," she corrected herself, "have returned. Signals are being detected," Amrin said as an image furred to life as dozens of dots soon filled the screen. "The enemy." BC growled. "They're a persistent bunch. Bart, as soon as things get stable, we need to leave this place. We need to start moving away from the colony as soon as possible. We'll just have to hope the pilot can catch up to us in his new machine." The dreads were soon deployed as they set up a defensive. 3. "We were barely able to survive one of those things," Jura cried out as the enemy offensive of cubes was being followed by 3 sea urchins. "We don't have much of a choice," Maya barked out. "Let's just hope that the pilot's machine is as good as he says." Though as she finished this, a massive beam of energy fired in between the dreads and the enemy, completely evaporating the cubes. The pilots covered their eyes and pulled back as something was approaching faster than their scanners could accurately track. "Another signal is being detected. Watch out," Celtic's voice blared over the comm link. "Oh no. Is it another bad alien?" Dita asked as her image appeared on Maya's screen. "Hold steady, watch and wait," Maya ordered as the black machine came into sight. "Wait a minute, that's an image," came to her mind. That was the same machine that nearly destroyed the Nirvana in one attack, though its appearance seemed to be altered quite a bit. "Fall back. I repeat, fall back," she ordered as the black machine took out a beam saber. Brockman ZX Advent Tune Soul Ablaze 0 o'clock to 0:40. A red aura radiated from the machine as the sea urchins turned their focus to the black machine, sensing it was the bigger threat. The sea urchins fired their spikes at the machine only for it to blur out of existence. A moment later it appeared behind one of the sea urchins, which separated in 2 from the machine's attack and exploded. The machine then shot forward at another sea urchin, avoiding its spikes as it gripped the saber in 2 hands and drove it into the core of the machine. Spinning around several times, it flung the sea urchin off towards the other one before using its twin-beam Gatling guns to blast the machines to pieces. Its Jura began, being rendered speechless. "So powerful," Barnett finished. Suddenly the black machine turned its attention towards them and began jetting forward at high speeds. It fired from its twin missile launchers, forcing the dreads to continue on the defensive. One of the missiles exploded near Dita Caucasus, causing her to lose control. Why does this alien keep picking on us?" Several dread pilots fired their missiles only for the black machine to disappear from their scanners. It appeared behind one of the dreads. "Cinnamon. Look out." One of the other pilots screamed, but it was too late. The machine fired upon the ship at close range, ending the life of one of the major pilots. The whole thing was surreal. They had always been so careful and planned ahead, and by sheer luck, not a single one of the crew had been lost. There had been injuries and close calls, but not once had they lost someone until now. "A-starred. You'll pay for that," another pilot screamed in outrage. So consumed with grief she ignored Maya's order, as the only thing on her mind was getting revenge for her lover. Her ship was cleaved in 2 by the black machine's beam saber. The dreads did their best to fight back, giving Nirvana ample time to distance itself from the machine of death, but it was as if the machine wasn't fazed by the attack. Retreat now. I'll hold it off. Maya ordered as she used the speed of her dread to move to the other side of the black machine and fired, drawing its attention away from the other dreads. I won't stand by and be helpless. I won't stand by and watch my comrades die. Leader. Are you insane? That monster will tear you apart. Barnett argued. That is an order, pilot. Maya harshly replied, causing Barnett to recoil in shock. She's right. Jura's image popped up. Don't sacrifice yourself so senselessly. Let us help. No. Do as I say. Maya replied, just as stubborn as ever as media continued to fire upon the machine. Instead of being ruthless like earlier, it seemed intent on toying with her. It wasn't like anyone would miss her. The people of Medjur made it clear when she was young and living on the streets. Despite her objections, several of the pilots fired on the machine. What are you all doing? Do you all want to die? Why? Why are they risking their lives for me? Suddenly the machine launched missiles from its launchers as it homed in on each of the nearby dreads. Me. Focus on me. The black machine ignored her as it focused on the colony where Naruto was at. Zoid's Death Soar soundtrack 0 o'clock to 0:35. The ominous glow radiated from the machine as its outer shell exploded, revealing its previous black and white shell. The wings of the machine extended as power began to radiate from it again. The white glow began radiating from the machine as its cavity opened up. A yellowish white energy began to radiate as the charged particles accelerated. This is terrible. Amryn began as she did a reading on the power output of the machine. The energy readings from that black and white machine are at least 3 times as powerful as last time. If that thing hits, then that pilot is done for. Maya emptied her entire arsenal at the machine in hopes of slowing it down or damaging it. An explosion occurred and for a brief moment hope coursed through her, only for the smoke to clear and reveal a purple barrier of shorts having been generated from the wings of the machine. The Vengeance fired the charged particle cannon directly at the station. The beam pierced through the outer shell of the colony and continued right through. Moments later an explosion occurred as the station was completely consumed. The colony has exploded. Celtic announced sadly. She, along with everyone on the bridge and those watching the video feed of the colony, were either shocked in silence or in tears as no signs of life appeared. There was no escape pod to be seen on screen. Not a ship or anything shown up on the radar. While it was true a good deal of them weren't ready to call Naruto a friend, gender barriers and all the hostilities between men and women were evaporating. At the very least he was an ally. No, Naruto. Dita wailed over the link. No, Naruto. Tears covering her cheeks as despair overtook her. Several of her allies dying had already left her shocked, but this was the one that pushed open the floodgates. Maya was shocked into silence. This wasn't supposed to happen. That idiot was supposed to come out of nowhere and save the day with that stupid grin of his. He wasn't supposed to die. Not him. She was trembling, but not of fear but something else. Dita, get out of there. Move. Maya looked up, the machine was heading right towards Dita. No. Not anyone else. You hear me, you bastard. Not anyone else. She pushed Gibson as far as she could, but she wasn't going to make it. Dita could only look up, frozen in fear as the machine threatened to cut her machine down. I'm sorry, Naruto. I guess I'll be seeing you soon. Though, the sound of something clashing caught her eye. Tales of Symphonia fighting of the spirit with Mega Man X instruments. There was another machine in front of her, blocking the evil machine's beam saber with its own. It was slightly smaller than the other machine, its color scheme white and orange as its wings hung in a downward direction. Where the other machine looked like a demon of sorts, a tortured creation trapped between heaven and hell, the other one was by far more human, not to mention it had a rather large backpack-shaped device on its back covered by said wings. You're the same as you always have been. I shouldn't be surprised, and because of that reason I'm going to erase your very existence, so you will never get the chance to harm another life. Dita was shocked into silence. She recognized that voice, but found herself unable to speak, overcome with emotion. Sorry I'm late. Naruto's image appeared on the screen. The hero always arrives at the last second. The rest of you get out of here. He's mine. Last time we fought you barely survived. Do you think now will be any different? Vengeance's pilot finally spoke. Just shut up and die. Naruto roared as he pushed the machine back. Taking out the beam rifles that were affixed to his wings, Naruto began firing as Vengeance began phasing from left and right, avoiding the blasts. Using his thrusters he moved back, putting distance between them as he continued to fire. Vengeance's speed proved greater than expected as it used its own beam saber to chop off the barrels of the gun. Dropping the rifles, Naruto once more pulled out his blade and slashed at the machine, lopping off one of its shoulder launchers. He then shot up as Vengeance began firing missiles at him, to which he prematurely detonated with his Vulcan cannon. He followed up with a 90mm machine gun, but Vengeance's speed once more made it a hard target to hit. Its beam saber clipped the side of Virtue, causing Naruto to grunt in pain as an electrical discharge radiated from the machine. Time for option V. I don't think so. Vengeance pulled out another beam saber and using its double cutter attack, sliced Virtue's backpack into 4 pieces, to which Naruto quickly removed. The double-sided beam lance which doubled as beam cannons were destroyed as a result of the explosion. You won't escape. He charged right through the explosion, taking damage to his own machine as the beam saber pierced right through Virtue's left arm, nearly hitting the cavity. He then began firing at close range, slowly chipping away at Virtue's head and armor. Naruto in response threw a punch, causing Vengeance to fly back. He panted heavily as electrical sparks coursed through the Gundam. It's over. 2 body cavities in the Vengeance opened as it fired long, retractable cables like grappling hooks to grab and restrain Virtue. Naruto turned up his thrusters to full power to pull away as Vengeance began pulling him into the line of fire. The grappling claws delivered a powerful electrical shock in an attempt to fry Naruto's systems. The Vengeance once more began to charge up for a charge particle beam. Naruto's eyes widened as he recalled this tactic. This was the very same double suicide tactic from before, but this time he didn't have any fellow Gundam pilots to back him up at the last minute. I have lived to see your death, the one that escaped me. Now perish, as your anguished cries fill my ears. The other dreads had been picked up, the damages they sustained left them unable to do much else but fly. The only one with functioning battle capabilities was Maya's Gibson. Ignoring the shouts of the others, Maya sped off towards the battle. Uzumaki. Combine with me. Maya ordered the Link. What? Maya, are you insane? Get out of here before she cuts him off. Listen, you idiot. As much as I hate to admit it, you're the only one that stands a chance against that monster. You can't die, not here, so we need to make him pay for all the lives that he has taken. So one more time, we need that power. I don't know what you fools are talking about, but I'll waste you both. The weapon was almost ready to fire. That power, Naruto thought. The one that destroyed those sea urchins. Maya thought. I need that power. We need that power. Both machines glowed. One last time. The force of the merger caused Vengeance's ropes to snap. Shit. How does he do it every time? The Dark Pilot demanded in outrage as he fired the cannon. The cannon pierced through the line only to meet with nothing. Something passed by the Vengeance with blinding speed as the machine's left arm exploded. What? That was when the machine came into view. The machine wings were spread out on its back like a bird as a new silver sheen coated what was once white and orange. The machine shot forward once again as an energy blade materialized from its hand as it impacted with a barrier that Vengeance was just able to erect in time. Dropping the barrier, Vengeance launched some missiles to which the unnamed machine easily dodged. That power, the pilot cackled. I want to fight it. To kill it or be killed by it. The Vengeance promptly glowed a bright purple before it disappeared in a flash. Teleportation. I didn't think a murder-seeking cretin such as himself would have such a thing. Maya stated with distaste. He doesn't. Any battle he's in, he's usually forced away by someone else when things aren't in his favor. Naruto informed her as a nasty scowl formed on his face. Meaning he's not alone. Come on, let's return to Nirvana. Songs end here. The hangar was buzzing with action as the new machine flew in. Almost everyone was crammed in the hangar just to see the duo. The cavity opened up, the bottom portion creating a path for them to walk out. The pilots noticed how nearly everyone looked up in awe. The duo hopped off the machine and walked over to a smiling Magno and BC with a stunned-looking Bart, gleeful-looking Jura, relaxed Barnett and Guero, and finally Dita brimming with happiness. Unable to restrain herself, Dita practically flew into Naruto's arms, almost knocking him over as she cried tears of joy. You had us worried there for a moment, young man. Magno noted. Naruto sheepishly. The pirate vessel christened Nirvana was orbiting around a desert planet. The screen images showed off various colors of brown, and desolation signified deep channels and other geographical events. On the bridge, the first officer and the captain watched the main monitor. This planet buxom vegan. It seems dead. Magna finished. Captain, let's disembark. There might be some information about their operation. The sub-commander suggested. The captain sighed. BC, I'm not worried about you, but the other girls. She reflected on the situation a bit more. Begin monitoring the surface of the planet and atmospheric conditions. Let's determine the best time to send down a landing party. Because of the situation, we haven't had much time to raid and we are running low on supplies. At this rate we might have to begin scavenging operations. Roger. Meanwhile, in the hangar where the 3 transformed dreads were stored, Naruto was working on Virtue. Using parts from the other vanguards, Naruto began making modifications to both Virtue and a replacement vanguard for the one he was using. Naruto also couldn't help but ponder the merger of these transformations and the implications behind them. Gah, mind out of the gutter, Uzumaki. He chided himself. got to install the new weapon systems. The hurried condition of the repairs with his fight with Vengeance showed. He didn't even have time to get up the mimic system, a jack-of-all-trades combat system that allowed him to customize the battle types and modes of his Gundam or other machines. Seeing that Kid Shin's transforming Gundam in action was what gave him the idea. Not to mention he was sure the merged Gundreads, as he took to calling them, had some sort of weakness, like his combination with Maya had incredible speed, but what were its defensive capabilities? Was it just another fragile speedster in mechanical form? Opening the torso section above the pit, Naruto examined the Heart of Virtue. It wasn't like the others, seeing as technology from one another dimension was used to build it. The information that could be received from the half-legible papers called it a soul drive. All in all, it was something to keep Naruto's mind busy, something to keep his mind off his failure, his inability to stop that man from killing those dread pilots. He couldn't get the image out of his head, the red eyes and stained cheeks of mournful lovers or relatives. Naruto was so engrossed in his thoughts that he failed to sense the presence of another person. Dita smiled as she went up the boarding ramp and gave him a wink and blew him a "Hey Naruto." Dita's voice startled the blonde and he nearly fell off the bar. "Geez, you startled me. Do you need something?" "Yeah, you've spent all your time in the hangar. Don't you get tired or bored?" "I'm doing important work. I don't have time to pause and yawn, having only taken power naps the past few days. I guess I should be taking better care of myself, lest I want to dim my reflexes. I guess I should get something to eat, something filling." Dita happily went off to get him some food, while he decided he should get a medical checkup. It was a rather quiet checkup, Naruto not having much to say to the Tarak men. Things didn't peak up until the weird girl with the talking doll showed up. "What's this thing? A video game? You've never seen a pulse monitor?" The physician was surprised to learn that the ship's nurse trainee was unfamiliar with basic medical equipment. "What's it to you if I haven't?" The 12-year-old gave Dwero a kind of pout. "Anyway, all health problems can be fixed in the jacuzzi." Jacuzzi? Naruto had to resist the urge to facepalm. What the hell was wrong with this dimension? Meanwhile, in the recreation center. Space battles always damage my hair," Jura said as she lounged on a salon chair with a towel wrapped around her head. She was saved for another towel wrapped about her body. Several attendants were massaging her legs and giving her a manicure and pedicure. "Don't worry, Jura. We're here to revive your beauty," one of the attendants assured me. "I appreciate it. I don't feel like going into battle unless my hair is set just right." Ioro floated beside her with a puzzled expression. "Sometimes humans don't make any sense." Jura then glanced over to the hot tub and saw Maya soaking in it. "Maya, are you trying to lose even more weight?" "Excess body fat gets in the way of combat," the blue-haired girl replied simply. "But you won't have any left," Jura pointed out. "No need to worry. I can take care of myself." Maya was not as unconcerned with maintaining her feminine appearance as her comrade was. Meanwhile, at the ship's mess hall, Dita was trying to decide what to get for Naruto. Plates of food moved along a conveyor belt. Not too far from her was Barnett, also trying to decide what to get. She then reached for a plate that was marked with a tag of 789 calories. The platter was suddenly snatched away before she could touch it. She looked over and saw Dita holding up her intended lunch. "Dita? That thing's loaded with calories." "It's alright." He was saying he could use something filling. The dread pilot wondered whom she was talking about as Dita walked away. Back on the bridge. Heat source response confirmed on the planet. I can't tell much due to a large desert storm, but the response looks like an artificial building, Ezra informed them. "Let's disembark. We might be able to find something," Mango remarked. "I guess we'll go about it the traditional pirate's way." Because of the weather, the dreads were not suited for atmospheric flight or terrestrial exploration, which left only one option. "Attention all pilots and crew members, as part of the away mission, all members should begin Vanguard simulations at once." Naruto almost fainted upon seeing what was done to the Vanguards. Did they really need to paint the things and with colorful designs? These were battle machines, they weren't meant to look pretty. "I know it's impossible to land on the planet in the dreads, but to pilot men's Vanguards, of all things." Barnett gazed upon the male mecha with extreme distaste. "I don't care what it is," Jura said. "As long as I can combine into something wonderful." It was pretty obvious Naruto was going to be on the mission, being the only one with Vanguard experience, so it made sense he would be the lead pilot in this expedition. At this time, Barda decided to boast. "Hey there, if anyone has any questions, please ask me. I've had endless training when I was in the military academy. You could say when it comes to van types." Bart was floored when an anti-gravity lift came down on top of him. The tech who was on it looked down and scolded, "What are you doing down there?" "Sheesh, we're busy, so get out of the way." Thankfully, Naruto wasn't stupefied enough that he wasn't able to prevent Dita from painting over his machine. A while later Naruto, Dwero and Bart watched from the control center as Dita, Barnet and Jura trained in the Vanguard simulators. "We have a heat response," Belvedere began. "But no responses for life forms." "Hey, could it be that thing?" Amrin began suggesting. "You mean the raising?" "Don't stop monitoring," PC ordered. "We'll head down when the storm subsides." "Roger." Both navigators responded. The style of combat is not something they'll adapt to so easily. Their long-range tactics are far too different from the close-range tactics of the vanguards. The surprised attacks from the tactical machines were the exact opposite of instinctual machines. As the virtual vanguards tripped and fell over each other, Jura became disgusted. "I can't take this. Why can't this baby move around with more elegance? I quit." She quickly exited the simulator in a huff. At the control center, Dwero nodded as he watched the pulse monitors on the simulators. "It looks like I'll be needed on the bridge." He then saw that one of the simulators was relaying that its pilot was feeling agitation and extreme stress. Apparently, the best Dread pilot was the worst Vanguard combatant. Heavy breathing, agitated features must be some sort of psychological trauma, Naruto noted, surprising Dwero. Maya slammed a fist on the simulator's side, breathing heavily as beads of sweat were gathered on her face. Her breathing had become labored and shallow as she sat in the confined area of the pit. Then her main monitor lit up. "Are there medical overrides in Measure?" Dwero's expression became serious. "In cases like this on Tarak, doctors have the authority to stop pilots from scrambling. Do you agree?" "No." Maya shot back. "Then try switching your field of view to all directions. That should lessen the impact on your body." "Leave me alone. I won't take help from anyone. I can overcome any obstacle myself." "Back with the others." How to use the 10-in-1 knife shield following the will of pilot simultaneously with the electron pulse beam. "I can do this." Bart smiled as he looked up from the Bangada instruction manual he had read. Naruto shook his head and pondered what to do. Maya apparently had some sort of problem, and if it was going to affect her performance, then they were going to need to get to the root of the problem. However, just as he turned to rise from his seat, his view was blocked by a very ample amount of cleavage. He felt very uncomfortable as he looked up. "Hello there," Jura said, and she smiled down at the blonde. "Hello to you too, Jura. Any reason why I'm getting the hello attack?" "In the next battle, you will be combining with me, Jura, next," she said as his cleavage threatened to swallow up his face. "I hope you keep that engraved into your mind." Unfortunately for Jura, Naruto was engraving other things into his mind. As expected, even with him backing Dwero, Maya assisting it was fatigued and ignored any attempts of advice. With his attempts to help rebuff, Naruto found himself in the biopark dome with Dita and enjoying a picnic. With a rare instance of freedom from distractions or battle, Naruto was able to converse and talk with her. He was able to learn a bit more about Dita. "So why are you so open towards me? With the way most of your crew vehemently detest men, I can't help but wonder why you're so different. You see, I want everyone to see and understand from our example. I want to talk with you, get to know you, and maybe once everyone can see a man and woman getting along, we can end the war quickly." Naruto's eyes softened, seeing a bit of the real person behind the bubbly UFO girl. During the course of their talk, he finally got around to eating the good Dita got for him. "Why are you staring at me so intently?" "It just makes me so happy to watch you," Dita replied cheerfully. Nearby, a certain someone began pictures from behind a tree. PAI check. And it appeared Paiwei was working for Jura, conversing with a buxom blonde who was taking a shower. That guy was at Dita's will with just one boxed lunch. Jura smiled after hearing Paiwei's report. I see. With the information in mind, Jura went about convincing Barnet to cook for her. "Why do I have to cook because of that?" Barnet was quite irritated to learn why her partner Jura had requested that she cook up one of her special meals. "But so I can combine," Jura explained as she admired the polish on her nails. "Don't you love me when I'm beautiful, Barnet?" The Dread pilot let off an irritated sigh. A cruel smile formed when she spotted a bottle of hot sauce. Without Jura noticing it, she began sprinkling a generous part of the bottle's contents, then added a few other choice spices to the filet mignon she was preparing. Satisfied with having something to eat, Naruto was on his way to take a nap when suddenly he found himself cornered by Barnet and Jura. Insistent that he came with them, he didn't bother to struggle or fight. Finally returning to the place he left no longer than minutes ago, he found himself in front of a table where several platters were gathered. Jura lifted the lid, and the aroma of food instantly caught the shinobi's attention. A sweet smile formed on Jura's face as she attempted to bribe the blonde. "If you agree to combine with me, you can eat it." "I don't know why you seem so insistent on combining with me, Jura, but I don't know the specifics behind the merger, really." Looking at the food, his stomach growled. "Damn his inhuman metabolism. I guess it wouldn't hurt to try," he said as he scooped up a fork of the concoction. pretty heavy on the hot sauces and spices. He remarked before consuming the bite. He said. I guess you two like the food extremely spicy. He remarked as Jura sent her lover an inquiring, suspicious glance. Surely Barnett wouldn't sabotage something so important to her. Let me try, Jura began only for Barnett to reach out and stop her. Before anything else could be said, BC's voice was heard on the intercom, stating that it was time for the Vanguard trainees and Naruto to prepare to descend toward the planet. Naruto shrugged and hastily left the park, Jura's reminder of them combining reaching his ears. Sorry, no time for ice cream. He said, jetting past Dita who was carrying 2 triple-flavored scoops of ice cream. Leading the special drop ship with a trio of Vanguard stashed inside, Naruto and Virtue was trying to scan the planet's surface, wondering if he could pick up anything. At the helm of the drop ship was Jura. Her gaze remained focused on Virtue. I won't let you get away that easily. Jura said fondly as she directed the ship to follow Naruto's trajectory. No. Naruto is going to combine with me. Dita said over the comm systems. White. Jura shot back. Barnett sighed. Oh, my. The Gundam and dropship made fiery re-entry paths through the planet's atmosphere. As soon as they had passed through the clouds and cooled down, the dropship broke apart, letting its cargo experience freefall for a few seconds. The Vanguards deployed umbrella-like devices to float down toward the planet's surface. Virtue simply righted itself using its powerful thrusters. On board the Nirvana. I started out late. Maya said as she ran toward her waiting Vanguard. Pyoro floated up the girl. You don't need to overdo it. Won't they be alright, even without you, Maya? I can't let that happen. I have my responsibilities. But the dropship is a one-way trip. There aren't any extras. The robot pointed out. What? On the planet's surface, the Vanguard team surveyed the seemingly desolate area. Placed off to one side were the umbrella-like devices, which also functioned like booster rockets for getting back up into orbit once the mission was finished. There's nothing here. Jura commented. Barnett agreed. There's no need for Maya to join us. Be sure that your movements are accounted for in the change of location. Battles in space and land are two completely different things, especially considering the designs of dreads meant you've never had to deal with or even planned for ground-based combat. He began only for Virtue to suddenly shake as Jura suddenly crashed into him. Jura smiled seductively in her Vanguard. Hey, why can't we hurry up with it? Be damn it, woman. Naruto snapped, his face going flush. We're on a mission. It isn't time for such things. He said, trying not to let his moral compass be swayed so easily. Dita's Vanguard came stomping up to them. Hold on. Naruto is going to do it with me. These women were going to kill him. He was sure at this rate if all his blood flow kept going to his lower body, his brain was going to starve and he was going to end up as a vegetable, medically unlikely or not. Hey you, who do you think you're talking to? Jura shot back. The only one, Mr. Alien, is going to do it with me. Dita shot back anyway, you can't. Enough. The shark shout silenced them. The two of you are acting like children. How about what I want? Have either of you considered the effect you're having on me? Quite frankly, it's getting annoying, and we have a job to do, not to mention I seem to combine only with your dreads, Jura. Why on earth are you pestering me now when you're in a Vanguard? Naruto asked, shocking the blonde into realization as he activated his thrusters and took to the air. However, he soon ran afoul of a sensor system and shot out a beam of red light, which caught the Gundam in the back. Several dozen more devices let loose crisscrossing beams that formed a kind of lattice above the area where the Vanguards were, effectively cutting them off from the rest of the planet. Shit, Naruto swore as an electrical impulse went through Virtue and he impacted against the ground. On the bridge of the Nirvana, Dwero became very concerned. Their pulses are rising. It looks like something happened. The defense system seems to have been activated. The blonde-haired navigator stated. The team has been surrounded by a shield that has sprung up. BC immediately raised the Vanguards, but the communications links had become unstable. Their responses to her hails became fuzzy. We're, crackle crackle trapped crackle. The D is, crackle, attacking US crackle. Buxom's expression turned to confusion. The D is attacking. What is this? It seems, crackle, like it's alive. High above, a lone Vanguard came down through the clouds. Inside it, Maya piloted the mecha toward the landing coordinates of the other machines. This is Maya. Where is everyone? Copy. She tried several times to raise her comrades on the communicator, but with no luck. The desert storm whipped about them, particles started to adhere to the surface of the Vanguards and spread across them like a thick blanket of darkness. Maya's mecha landed hard on the planet's surface. Her pit became dark as several systems went offline. Due to the storm, she had landed several hundred meters from where the others were. Her breathing became rapid and she was taking short gasps. Her heart thundered and her daughter's forehead became sweaty and her eyes widened in terror. She then heard Dwero's voice on the comm link. Maya, can you hear me? Open up your vision. Look as far away as you can. Can you hear me, Maya? The Dread leader reached out with a trembling hand and pressed a switch. He's really nosy. As the monitor lit up and showed the dry landscape, her breathing became calmer and her heart rate dropped a bit. However, her relief was proven temporary as she caught movement in the distance. Something was heading right for her. What is it? Just as BC was able to get to them, the message about Maya disappearing off radar and the group were able to free themselves, a new threat appeared. Several mounds of the D on the ground began to rise and take the form of the vanguards. Nita struggled as one of the D shapes grappled with her mecha. She saw that the power of their system was being drained. The desert is copying the vanguard systems. It's like they're draining the blood out of us. There. Naruto finally announced upon finding his target. Activating the exhausts, he easily blasted away the D, trying to swallow up his armor. Using a beam rifle, he fired only for some sort of shield to pop up and deflect it. Shit, I knew it would have been too easy. He remarked as he turned his attention to the D creatures. Firing on them, the heated beams of energy displaced the creatures. I have an idea on what's going on. There's some sort of machine generating these creatures. Let's find Maya first and then we'll take care of it. Maya shivered in fear as her vanguard lay on its back as the living D was swallowing it up. As the strange substance coated her mecha and rendered her helpless, her body began to lock up and her breathing rate became shallower. Her heart rate became like a hummingbird's and she couldn't seem to calm down. What should I do? I'm so scared. Just as her machine was completely engulfed by the desert, Barnett's mecha came upon the scene. Maya. Barnett engaged a shovel extension of her vanguard and tried to remove the D that had trapped Maya. She couldn't use the vent exhaust as it was too clogged from the desert storm and had suffered some damage during the battle. Suddenly, Maya's desert-coated mecha got up and knocked Barnett's machine away. It rocketed up to touch the force field high above. This caused a loud alarm to ring out as several structures lit up and began pulsating. What's going on? Magno demanded. Ezra gasped as she read the readouts from the sudden power buildup from the planet's surface. Some kind of auto-destruct sequence was activated. Another crew member confirmed this. A countdown has begun, 300 seconds to detonation. Nirvana to landing party, get out of there now. BC cried out. Inside the mecha, the Dread leader was in a state of catatonic shock and didn't seem to notice anything at all. She was suddenly jolted back to reality as her vanguard was suddenly knocked on its back. She then heard Naruto's voice over the communicator. Maya, what the hell are you doing? Get your head in the game and get that stuff off you. Stop it. Don't bother with me. She miserably whispered. Don't be so damn foolish. Naruto shot back. Are you just going to give up? To hell with everyone that cares about you. Do you think I'll sit by and watch you die? By this time, the D had coated Maya's vanguard in a layer that was too dense for such measures. He needed another way. It was then that he noticed a kind of storage tank nearby. His sensors picked up a kind of gas that was a great deal of several degrees colder than the outside temperature. Firing into the tank, it exploded, unleashing its payload of freezing mist. The cloud of cooling vapors spread across the area, chilling everything in its path. At the same time, the force field above them deactivated as the circuitry became frozen. What are you doing? It's cold. I'm going to freeze. Jura complained and then realized something. Freeze. She looked through her monitor and saw that the D creature she had fought suddenly became stiff and brittle. It then broke apart into a pile of shards. The other enemies followed suit. Amazing, Naruto. Dita cheered. The sand that was coating it cracked apart, allowing Maya to see daylight again. To think I owe that man a debt now. Baka, haven't you learned anything yet? He asked her over the link. Man, woman, it doesn't matter, it's a matter of survival. If you don't want to die, then grab my hand. Time's up. Amrin replied as the countdown meter on her console reached a full 0. On the bridge of the Nirvana, Magno and the rest of her crew watched with apprehension as the surface of the desert planet was engulfed in huge balls of fire and explosive force in orange-red color. Dwero's medical monitors were showing nothing but static. There was a deep foreboding silence all over the ship as the pirates feared for the worst. Then Dwero's attention went back to the monitors as all 5 readouts displaying the landing party went back online as several objects broke out of the massive conflagrations that tore up the planet's surface. All vanguards are accounted for. Ezra said with a strong amount of relief in her voice. The rest of the bridge personnel let off a collective sigh of relief as well. It was then that one of the bridge crew, namely Belvedere, announced that she had received some data from the investigation. We intercepted some data from the planet. Read it. BC ordered. Belvedere became a bit tense. Huh? What's wrong? Didn't you hear me? I'm sorry, I'll read it now. She said as she continued. This season's harvest items. Red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, lymph cells, etc. All components in good condition. This is where the data ends. Heptanthus as BC began. It looks like the enemy really wanted to harvest was us. The captain noted as a tense expression formed on her face. I guess they only think of us as something like vegetables. There is one thing that I have learned from this incident. It is that we are facing something truly formidable. In the hangar bay, the vanguards were being placed away, but Parfit had decided that they would be maintained from now on, for when they would be needed again. With the aliens now stepping up in their attacks and such, it was a very real possibility. Ida and the other pilots sat off to one side. What a disgrace. Maya thought. To have my life being saved by him once again. Speaking of said man, he made his way to where the captain was. Hey Magno Abba, we need to talk. The captain didn't say a word, but merely nodded, already figuring just what the topic of the conversation was. Maya. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the KYUUBI16 for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.